You know, in wound care, it feels like getting paid for the incredible work you do is getting tougher and tougher. If you're tired of chasing down payments, or maybe you're just worried about audits, you are in exactly the right place. We're about to break down the new rules of reimbursement. Okay, so first things first, let's just get this out of the way. The old way of doing things, it's completely over. The days when your clinical judgment and a quick soap note were enough to get a claim paid, yeah, those are long gone. The entire reimbursement landscape has shifted under our feet. Today, the burden of proof is, well, it's all on you. Payers demand hard, cold evidence for every single service, every product you use. And that old standby, it was my best clinical judgment, that's pretty much a giant red flag for auditors now, and it puts your payments at serious risk. But hey, don't worry, there's absolutely a clear path through all this complexity. This isn't about gaming the system or finding loopholes. Not at all. It's about having a solid, systematic approach that basically makes your claims audit-proof. And this is that path forward. We're going to break down 4 foundational basics. And I gotta stress this, the order here is absolutely critical. So don't think of this as a checklist. Think of it as a powerful framework for building a reimbursement strategy that is, frankly, unshakable. All right, so it all kicks off with basic number 1, documentation. We really have to stop thinking of documentation as just, a chore. It's not. It's your evidence. It's the story that justifies every single thing you do for that patient. So what's the goal here? You're basically painting a picture so vivid, so clear, that a reviewer who has never met your patient can pick up that file and understand their entire journey. The who, the what, the where, the when, the why, it all has to be there. It has to be a complete story. And what that really means is your notes have to show this logical progression of care. You've got to detail everything, that first assessment with all the measurements, the clear plan of care, how the wound is responding or not responding. And here's the kicker. If you have to move to a more advanced treatment, your documentation better prove exactly why the standard stuff wasn't cutting it. Okay, that brings us to basic number 2, policies. Once you have that compelling story in your documentation, you have to make sure it follows the payer's playbook. Think of it this way. You can't win the game if you don't even know the rules, right? So at the very top of the pyramid, you've got your national coverage determinations. We call them NCDs. These are the big federal rules from CMS, and they apply to everyone, everywhere, period, no exceptions. Your documentation has to meet these standards. But then, it gets a little more granular. You also have local rules. These are the Local Coverage Determinations, or LCDs. Your regional Medicare contractor makes these, and they can tack on more specific requirements on top of the national ones. So you gotta know both. And here is something that trips up so many people. It's a huge misconception. You might think, hey, no policy, no problem. But it's actually the exact opposite. When there isn't a specific policy written down, the burden of proof on you gets even heavier. You have to prove that what you did is safe, effective, and standard medical practice all on your own. Okay, so only after your documentation is solid and it lines up with all the policies, only then do we get to coding. This is basic number 3. And see, coding isn't where you start your day. It's the final translation step, turning your great clinical story into the language that billing systems understand. It helps to think of it like you're working with 3 different but related languages. You've got ICD-10 codes, that's the what's wrong with the patient language. Then there's CPT codes, that's the what you did for them language. And finally, HCPS codes, that's for all the products and supplies you used. And here's the key. All 3 of those have to work together in perfect harmony. It really is like a 3-legged stool. If one leg is wobbly, if the diagnosis doesn't support the procedure, or the procedure isn't allowed by the policy, the whole thing just falls apart. And that brings us to what is without a doubt the single biggest mistake people make in billing. Just because a code exists for something, that does not mean it's covered. Let me say that again because it's that important. A code does not equal coverage. It always comes back to medical necessity, which has to be proven in your documentation and allowed by the payer's policy. All right, we're on the home stretch. Basic number 4. You can do everything else right. Perfect documentation, you know all the policies, your coding is on point. But if you're not up to speed on the current year's payment rules, you can still get into trouble. This is not a set it and forget it kind of world. See, every single year, without fail, CMS releases these huge documents called final payment rules, and they spell out exactly how they're going to pay for things. You have to read the one that applies to your practice, figure out what's changing, and make a plan to deal with it before it actually takes effect. A perfect example of this in action was a recent rule change for skin substitutes. I mean, practically overnight, the whole payment model just flipped. It went from paying per piece to a flat rate per square centimeter. And get this, no payment for any wasted material. You could imagine the practices that didn't immediately change how they bought products, how they documented, and how their software billed, they got hammered with denials. So you see, when you start putting these four basics together in the right order, you make a huge shift. You go from being reactive and just hunting for a code to being proactive and building your claim on a solid foundation of documentation. That's what protects your revenue. So let's just recap, because remember, the sequence is everything. Step 1, tell that complete patient story through rock-solid documentation. 2, make sure that story plays by the payer's rules. 3, pick the codes that perfectly translate that story. And finally, 4, make sure you're doing it all according to this year's payment guidelines. Look, making these four basics a habit, it's not about jumping through more administrative hoops, not at all. It's about building a practice that's stable, that's sustainable, where you get paid fairly for the amazing work you do. Honestly, it gives you the peace of mind to focus on what actually matters, right? Healing your patients. At the end of the day, this framework is really the difference between just surviving in modern healthcare and actually thriving. So the real question isn't just if your practice is ready to master the system, it's what's the cost to your practice and, frankly, to your own peace of mind if you don't.